The charter committee's duty was take away information which the children have already put out there and collaborate it into a document which can then be sent back to the people, to the government, to whoever feels the need to implement it in society, because it would therefore be the voice of the children being heard for the first time over what adults feel is necessary for us.
So there's a lot of opinions that we all have about girls feeling more unsafe, or how safe we actually feel at home or outside. And what was really interesting is we for the first time, we got hard data on what the truth was, and the reality in some places was quite different from what we thought it was. That was very interesting to find out that boys feel just as safe and just as unsafe as girls do.
There was one kid who had said, my brother was sold, please don't let my parents sell me. I've got another year in school, and even after that I'm going to do everything in my ability to make sure that Bangalore or even India is a safer place for children, only so that I don't have to read stories of children saying things like that, because people don't deserve to have to go through situations where their safety is, or they're always scared.
You hear a variety of opinions. You hear different things that people want, and considering it's something from the kids, and something from us, you sort of need to incorporate all of them. So I think that's a skill that I've acquired, to incorporate opinions of everyone while still staying true to the actual message.
Veer in particular said something. He said we have a duty and responsibility to ensure that every child's voice is heard. And that was a tremendous motivation for me. We could have just conducted this event on 19th of November where we brought different schools together, we brought different stakeholders together, including the media. And we presented a charter to the government of Karnataka via the UNICEF. We could have stopped it at that, but somewhere it was eating all our consciences. And the fact is that we are in a position where we are so much more privileged. And it would be a sure shame not to use that position of privilege in order to affect the kind of change. It's a cliche, but really we need to be the change we want to see. And this was an opportunity for children to be change makers. So we really took it and ran with it. And I think the best thing about this is that children believe it's their initiative.
There are points in our charter that say parents should not have gender bias, or there shouldn't be any discrimination of students in classes, or like we said, there should be drainage systems, etc., things that I never realized we needed to put in because certain children feel the need for that. Because for me it's always been there, and for a lot of the kids who were there, it was something that was a given. But we'll sit in the charter and we'll say, but this is so obvious. And then we'll realize, but it's not.
We all have this hypothesis that this is happening only in the government schools and in the underprivileged schools, but it's not true. The fear, I'm not saying this is happening, but the fear and the perceptions of safety is uniform across. The second thing is the way we did this research needed to ensure that it was inclusive and to ensure that the sampling was representative. And that was something that the exercise and the process, that students did a wonderful job, and I think that really stands out in my mind.
I didn't know the importance of my work on the first day. I thought it was just jotting down what other people say. I thought I was just a scribe. But then in the end, we were collecting information, making surveys, analyzing different groups and their perspectives. And not only was it more important than what I initially believed, it was more enjoyable than I thought it would be. It was extremely fun because you are doing something for society, and the enjoyment or the happiness you get out of it is it can't be just, I don't think words can explain it, because you're actually helping those people out there.
Every single point of view, whether it's diverging or it's converging, it's in our charter, and we made it very clear that safety, it's very subjective to the person's circumstance. A child coming from a low socio-economic background will not have the same needs and will not have the same safety issues as someone from a high affluent background.
This commitment among young people is hugely reassuring for someone like me, because I think the world is going to be in good hands.
I feel unsafe due to the absence of surveillance measures in public places and public transport. I would feel safer if CCTV cameras were installed in such areas. For our safety, while going home from school, we need to feel safe in the buses.
I feel unsafe when there is no one outside to protect me. I believe placing police personnel in secluded and dark areas and having an alert government would make me feel much safer.
When I go out to the market alone to buy the stuff my mom needs, or when I go walking outside, men stare at me. There was another situation in the temple where a guy was standing next to me and he was touching my hand, but I could not express it to anyone at all. I wish that girls were safe. I felt so bad that day. I could not believe that someone could do something like that even in a temple.
I feel unsafe when I'm alone and can't reach my parents. Having cell phone connectivity and helplines will make me feel safe. I was alone in a taxi and I saw the driver take out a knife. I thought he was going to threaten me and ask for money or even kidnap me.
I now feel extremely unsafe walking on the streets. I would rather have someone walk with me. I feel uncomfortable and unsafe when boys come and roam near my house. I am affected from this situation. In a public bus, my aunt was sitting in front and I was at the back. After a few minutes, I noticed that 3 guys were staring at me. I was terrified, and maybe would have felt safer if my mom was with me.
I feel unsafe on public roads because there are no lights. I would feel safer if local authorities installed more street lights in unlit stretches of roads. A stretch of the street where my apartment is situated is very dark due to lack of lights there at night and can prove to be very unsafe for anyone walking through.
Children from more affluent backgrounds expected freedom along with their safety. They were not willing to compromise their freedom. They didn't want parents to accompany them outside so much, choose their clothes for them. They didn't want teachers to accompany them from class to class. They didn't want CCTV cameras in their classroom. They didn't want internet usage to be monitored. They kind of see that as an infringement of their freedom. And they also believe that that will not really equip them for the wider world.
While that contrasted quite a bit with the government school students who wanted physical safety or food safety and wanted to be safe from physical abuse and were more willing to have more stronger or restrictive security measures.
It was very clear that they wanted their parents to play a far bigger role than they currently play.
Another interesting point of data was that depending on how safe people felt with their surroundings, they would give very different answers to what they felt was a good measure. People may find that CCTV cameras were good, while others would find it was bad because it didn't either solve the problem or it infringed on their privacy. But if you are in a harder position, then CCTV cameras may be your hope for improving your life. So you can't simply solve the problem by giving a one-size-fits-all solution.
The areas that they all agreed on was that they wanted to be heard. And they wanted all stakeholders to be accountable. Whether it's the government, the police, the media, civil society, their parents, their teachers, they wanted everyone to be accountable for child safety. At the same time, they recognized that they have a responsibility. they have a responsibility to ensure that they are safe. They have a responsibility to report incidents promptly and truthfully while respecting people from different backgrounds. And I think that showed a lot of maturity, that children recognize that it's not just a right, but they have a responsibility which goes hand in hand with that right.
This survey is in a way one of its kind because it's the first time we found real hard data on what children feel about their own safety. And that means it's in a unique position of being quite useful in creating rules and laws or simply understanding what children are feeling or going through.
The idea or the intent is not to make them paranoid or to mistrust or distrust any adult, but how to protect themselves and how to ensure that they are treated, as you said, with dignity and respect. That any person, who comes forward to give them comfort or, just shake a hand or give them a hug, does it out of affection and out of respect for them, but not with an intent that is abusive. So I think we need to teach that child. And if you look at the West, every child is taught this.
Positive that these children's voices that have been raised today are not in vain. They will be reflected in the policy which we hope and want the government to adopt for Karnataka.
In most of our societies, both in the West and the East, children are supposed to be seen often but not heard. So to shift from that to listening to children and more importantly to give serious attention to what they're saying and have their perspectives shape some of the policies that govern the way that the business of the country goes on is a big shift.
As a parent, it's not about the act, it's about the fear. It's about the perception of safety, which is also very important to understand. I think we are committed to give our children this kind of a fearless place, a safe place, which they can kind of go and experiment. Otherwise, you're going to always hold them back and not allow them to live up to their potential.
One of the key drivers for me really in this is the people I know who come from really affluent homes and they were abused when they were children. Not necessarily family members, but people, neighbors, friends, relations, whatever the case might be. And I know this has pretty much tortured them through their lives. I wasn't there for them when they were kids, but if I could actually do something for other children to ensure that they don't have to go through the same thing, I think that would be tremendous.
My hope is that this does not end as a one-off initiative. My hope is that we will see this happening every year, that we will learn and refine our tools, probably focusing on a few very specific objectives which we can see happening through this process. So I hope that the leadership that this institution, Inventure, has given in this very, very important area of creating or strengthening a protective environment for children where they will feel much safer than they do today is something which will be sustained.
It's made me more aware of my surroundings. It's made me think about what other people who are less fortunate are going through, that are my age or going to school as well, or going through just a harder environment.
Kids should have the ability to dream, and we want to make sure that their dreams come true.